Happy Mother's Day, peace and blessings. I hope you all are enjoying your Mother's Day today. All right, so libation. Let's talk about it. So, the background is a little different, the scenery is a little different because I'm outside in nature, in my backyard, feeling wonderful on this Mother's Day. And so, if you hear anything in the background, those are my neighbors. And I guess they're celebrating their Mother's Day. All right, libation. So, what is it? And why do we perform libation? So, we're going to get into that. But first, let's pour libation. And what you can use for libation, I just have bottled water. So, this is a libation that goes out to all of my ancestors. And who are the ancestors? Those that are in my family and my bloodline that have come before me. To those of my good-hearted, good-spirited ancestors, I pour this libation out for you. Ashe. All right. Now, let's get on with the video. All right, libation. What is it? Here's the definition. It's a drink poured out as an offering to a deity or to an ancestor. Why is it important to pour libation? Okay, so libation is a sacred and communal, and what communal means is that it's shared by all members of a community, which was probably done, and probably it's still being done now, in Africa and in certain countries in Africa. And it's done for a common use. It is useful and important because it helps to overcome fears, anxiety, and frustrations. So, what does it mean to pour libation? And I've talked about this before, so we're just going over it again. It is an offering to a god, goddess, or spirit, or in memory of those who have passed on, such as grandmothers, grandfathers, mothers, fathers, so on and so forth. And the question is, what can you use to pour as libation? You can use alcohol such as beer, you can use wine, tea, water, milk, juice, whatever the specific ancestor that you're trying to communicate with, or whatever deity it is that you're trying to communicate with, because you have to research and look up the deities that you're trying to connect with. Like, for example, if you're trying to connect with Oshun, which is the goddess of love, fertility, and money, if you're trying to connect with that specific deity, then you would use fresh water. Because she is the goddess of fresh water. So you would just like I did, you would get a bottle of water, pour it out to her, and go through with your ritual, or go through with whatever it is that you're trying to do to connect with her with. And to find out more about Oshun, I encourage you to research Oshun. She is a Yoruba deity. Let's go on. So you can use any of those beverages to pour out your libation. And this is an excerpt from one of the websites that I looked up information on. And it says, pour libation for your father and mother who rest in the valley of the dead, for those of your parents have passed on or transitioned to the spirit world, or the spirit realm, or the other world, however you call it, or whatever you say to call it. And it says, God will witness your action, which is the creator, and accept it. Do not forget to do this even when you are away from home, for as you do for your parents, your children will do for you also. And this is in the book of Anai and Kemet, and Kemet is another name for Egypt or ancient Egypt. And libation in Africa is a ritual of heritage, a drink offering to honor and please the Creator, the lesser deities, our ancestors, humans present and non present, and for the environment. So basically, libation is still being performed even to this day in certain countries in Africa. They really, all of Africa hadn't gotten away from certain traditions of communicating with certain deities and communicating with their ancestors, because I know in Africa, just by reading and researching, that's a big part of the culture, if you will, our African culture, and who we are and where our ancestors came from. So we just and I think that here, since we've been colonized here in America, we've kind of gotten away from tradition and from really understanding and studying what our traditions are and what our cultures are. So that's why I think that it's important that we read up on what we should know about our history, and for those of us that are interested in you checking out this video, thank you very much, because it shows an effort, on your part, that you want to learn more about where your ancestors come from and what your history is and what your culture is. So let's continue. And libation is also practiced in many other parts of the world, not just in Africa. But right now we're specifically talking about Africa and African people, because these are my ancestors. These are, it's a part of my culture and my tradition. So, and it may also be performed, libations may also be performed to issue curses upon wrongdoers. But we don't want to do anything that's negative, because remember, whatever negativity you have in you, it comes right back to you. So always remember that karma is real. So you want to do good, you want to do the right thing, and those that aren't doing good and those that aren't doing the right thing, they'll get what they deserve in due time, and when it's time for them to reap what they sow. So, and ancestors, your invisible allies, and I've got this information, and I'm going to put the links in the description below to the websites where I'm getting my information from, so that you can go and you can do further reading and further research for yourself. Don't take my word for it. But so with that segue of talking about libations and pouring out libations, then we go into the ancestors, and we're going to talk about the ancestral realm. So, how ancestors affect us. Life is what you make it. It is so with the ancestors as well. Your ancestors can be your source of inspiration, help, and protection, or a source of trouble, chaos, and obstruction in your life. It's all up to you. So, basically, you have your positive ancestors, you have your negative ancestors. Really, what you want to do, you want to connect with your positive ancestors, and we're going to talk about that later on as well. We're going to do a breakdown of your positive ancestors and negative ancestors. Many people have no idea how powerful the hidden influence of their ancestors is on the life they are living. That's because we've been colonized, number one, and so many of our people have been introduced to Christianity and to other religions. And certain religions and specific religions really don't delve into this, and they don't talk about this, because their religions are not based on spiritualism. And I know that a lot of people get that confused. They think that religion and being religious and being spiritual, they think that it's the same thing. It's absolutely untrue. It's not, because you are born a spiritual person. It is only after you grow and go and get older that you are indoctrinated with religion and religious views and religious beliefs. So, let's keep it moving. All right. So, some of the problems you're having today might be caused by your ancestors or by you not handling them properly. And a lot of times it's really on us. We really have to take a look at ourselves and look at our lives and see what it is that we're doing and where we're going. Because sometimes, we have to put the blame on ourselves because we are the root cause of our problem sometimes, and we are the blame. Because we have to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and see where it is that we're going wrong and what it is that we're doing that we can change or that we can fix the issue or fix the problems. Many persistent and unsolvable problems in your life, although not necessarily caused by your ancestors, could easily be overcome with your ancestors' help if only you knew how to contact them and harness their power. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to contact our ancestors, and I know that a lot of people feel as though this is taboo. Oh no, you shouldn't wake the dead, shouldn't bother the dead, but it's a part of their responsibility as our ancestors to be there for us and to help us. Sometimes you think you're going and you get that good stroke of luck. Could have been one of your ancestors, looking out for you and helping you out. I know a lot of people, especially Christians, they say, oh, that was God. God did it. In certain issues or certain situations, you can believe that because, yes, I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that the Creator does watch over us and looks out for us. But at the same time, I also believe in my good-hearted, good-natured ancestors. And it's like sometimes, and this is from a personal perspective, I look at myself and I just, I just don't really realize or see how blessed I am. And I know it's not because of anything that I did, but I know that it's because of the Creator, and I know that it's because of my ancestors as well. So, and it's just like, I don't really sometimes take the time out to say, like, wow, really? This is happening because of this, that, and the third. Because indefinitely, you have to put in the work. You have to put forth the effort, to make changes in your life, to be a more productive person and to be a more positive person. So it's like, you have to make that conscious choice and that conscious decision. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody can help you do it. You have to do it on your own. And yourself, you have to come to the conclusion and to the realization that, okay, I need to make some changes, but I just don't know how. So I think by reading and researching, it can help you get to that point in your life. All right, let's go on. Who counts as an ancestor? Anyone in your family or in your bloodline, going back many generations, is an ancestor and a possible ally. An ancestor has the responsibility of helping you. It is the role of your ancestors to help and protect you. Now remember, we always want to focus on our good-hearted, good-natured ancestors, and we're going to get into that later as to why. Strengthening the bond. So you want to strengthen the bond of your ancestors. One way to do that is to learn the language of your ancestors. Now, for example, with me, I'm taking it from a personal perspective. I found out a few years ago through AfricanAncestry.com, and you can check it out here on YouTube because I posted the video, what my maternal lineage was, as well as my paternal lineage. Now, as a female, I could not take the paternal test, so I had to have my dad take it, and he took it, and I took the maternal test. So for my maternal side, I am Yoruba and Fulani, and paternal, I am Yoruba and Hausa. So, and that's through the DNA testing. So, one way that I could connect or communicate with my Yoruba ancestors is by learning the Yoruba language. And but if you're in a position where you don't know your exact African lineage, because remember, we're focusing specifically on African people and people of African descent, what you can do is you can always connect with that ancestor that you had a close connection with. And if you feel like there's an ancestor that you didn't have a close connection with, then you can just call on your good hearted ancestors in general to help you. Now, not all of our ancestors were good, and not all of them are good. So, we talked about that earlier. We've talked about that several times throughout the video. So, ancestors with issues. So, some of our ancestors can be negative, just like living people. So, a spiteful person will be a spiteful person. A spiteful person will be a spiteful spirit, and a good hearted person will be a good hearted spirit. A human with lots of issues will be a spirit with lots of issues. So, when you leave this earth and you transition, if you happen to transition as not being such a nice person, and you didn't have a good heart, chances are you're going to go to the spirit room the same way you left here. And that really shouldn't be your goal. Your goal, or your choice to come here to this earth, and that we're getting a little deep, but your conscious decision, your conscious choice to come to this earth was so that you can learn from a human perspective and from a human spirit, because we all know that we are spirits having a human experience. So we're spirits, we came from somewhere, came down here, entered into this body so that we could understand the aspects of human nature. Alright, so now we can divide our ancestors into positive and into negative. Right now we're going to focus on the negative first. So now a negative ancestor may not necessarily be negative in general, or they may not necessarily be evil, but they are negative for you. Which may mean that they are obstructing you in some way, keeping you from moving forward in your life, and they're sabotaging your plans for the future you want to create. And an example of that, it could be that you've done all you can to do let's see, where am I? Okay, to have a ritual that doesn't work. Say like you've done a ritual. I try not to use this as an example of a ritual, because many people don't do rituals because they think it's taboo, and they haven't really grown or graduated, if you will, to that level yet. So instead of me using a ritual, let's just say, for example, you feel as though you want a specific, let's just use this as an example. Let's say you want okay, I have to use ritual because I'm trying to put it into perspective to where when you're watching this video, when you come across this video, you understand it. But let's just go with ritual. So let's just say for the sake of saying it, you know how to do a ritual. Let's just say you do a ritual and that ritual doesn't work for you. Let's say it's a money ritual and that money ritual doesn't work for you because one or more of your ancestors won't let it work. And the reason being is because they may feel as though, I don't know, I'm just using this as an example. They don't want you to have more money than they had when they were on earth, so they don't really want you to exceed their financial gains. So they could, in a way, be blocking you are stopping you from gaining that. I'm just using that as an example. May not be the best example, but that's the best I could do with that one. So now let's talk about the positive aspects. Now, if you want more information, because there's a wealth of information, because this is what I printed off from the website. So please go and read about your negative ancestors versus your positive ancestors. And you could find that under the title of Ancestors with Issues. So it's all there for you. It's Ancestors with Issues. So you can find that and you can read up on that so you can have a clear and better understanding of that. Now, moving on to the positive ancestors. These are the ancestors willing to work with you according to how you want your life to go and how you want your life to be. And they're here to protect you physically and spiritually from harm, and they can open many doors for you. So, for example, if you've got good things going on in your life right now, you can attribute that to your good-hearted ancestors and also the creator. So we can't you just exclude or leave the creator out. So for example, say like you want a new job, or you want to improve your financial situation, or find the right man or woman for you. They can be of great assistance in that, and some can even become your spirit guides, where they can guide you and lead you spiritually to a higher spiritual level. So ancestors can accomplish many things that we can't, because they're in the spirit realm and they're not limited to physicalities such as we are, because we're still a spirit in this human body, so we're still experiencing all of the human physical things on this planet. But when they cross over, they're back to their original state of being. So they can do a lot more from where they are. And we just have to ask them and call on them. And we're going to get into that in a little bit too, on how to do that. Now, this may freak some people out. And if it's something that just isn't resonating with your spirit, then this is not the video for you. And I encourage you to do what it is that you do. Continue to do what you do, because you're not ready for this in your life, basically. So, you can watch with a grain of salt and then move on, because this isn't for everybody, and everybody's not going to get this. Everybody's not going to understand it, because you're in a state where you're not ready to, and you may never be ready to. It is what it is. So so the question they asked is, ancestral work evil? And the answer to that question is no. Now, are there evil spirits? Are there evil people? Are there negative spirits? Yes, but you have to make sure that when you are doing this, that you're righteous, and that you're doing what you're supposed to do, and that what you need to do, that you're making sure that you're not trying to harm anyone, not trying to harm yourself. You just want to better yourself. You just want to better your life spiritually. You want to better your life physically. So that's what our good-hearted, spirited ancestors are here for. And that's what they're here to help us do. So, benefits of ancestral work. It strengthens the bond of love that goes beyond death. So, it reconnects you with your ancestral roots and true cultural traditions. So that's something that a lot of our ancestors lost when they were a part of the Atlantic slave trade. When they came over here, our ancestors, our African ancestors, were spiritual people. They had their own way of worship. They had their own way of being, and their own traditions, and their own way of doing things. But when they were captured and they came here to America, all of that was forbidden, if you will, and they were unable to practice their spiritual belief system, due to coming to a new place in a new world. But all wasn't lost and all wasn't forgotten, because some still practiced in secret. So that's why we still have the knowledge that we have now, that we are obtaining now, because it was something that never died. It's always been a part of us, and it's always been a part of our culture and our tradition. Whether or not you believe in it, whether or not you practice it, it is what it is, and we've always been a spiritual people. A lot of times, our ancestors never really connected with religion, because religion is a man-made concept, but spiritualism is something that is just within you, and you just have to research it and know how to bring about that natural spiritual essence that is within you and that is a part of you. So it just takes time, dedication, reading, research, and a thirst for knowledge. So if this is something that's for you, then it's for you, and you will learn it if it is for you to learn. The next video I'll do is setting up an ancestral altar, which is another segue, since we talked about libation, pouring libation, and we talked about ancestral worship, and how to communicate and contact your ancestors. So next up will be the ancestral altar, and I want to say once again, happy Mother's Day. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. Peace and blessings.